Hi, welcome to Weld.com. My name is Beau Wigington, and today we're going to be making a fire pit out of this old leveling drum.
So this drum I found at D.H. Griffin, my local scrapyard. It used to be used for leveling out sod. You would fill it with sand and it would compact the sod down. But we're using it for a fire pit.
First thing that we had to do is get all the excess rust off of this because it was very, very dirty. And what I used to do that was one of these. This is a stripping disc. Went ahead and just went over the entire surface of the drum and took off all the excess rust. There's still a little bit more, but we're going to get to that later. We're going to lay out our lines to cut off this lid. What I did, took a piece of angle iron, keep a nice consistent line as I rolled the tube all the way around, keeping pressure on the top. So we got a nice even line all the way around. And the reason I left so much room on top is we're actually going to cut this off. It's going to become the lid to our fire pit. And I'm actually going to cut little slits all the way around so we can bend it out so we can actually set it on top whenever it's not in use.
When using a cut-off disc, you need to make sure that you are staying nice and straight, and you don't actually want to just cut straight down. You want to score, and then you want to use the edge of the cutting wheel to guide you along your line.
All right. So what I did next is I went ahead and I portioned out evenly around the edge here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and make those slits that I was talking about earlier. We're going to cut it down so we can bend these out just enough so that we have a nice little snug fit for our lid. Yeah.
One little thing I do want to comment on is that we do have our shop rags on the ground. So if you are doing any grinding, cutting, you want to make sure you do not have anything flammable like those shop rags on the ground. Slipped my mind, and I just want to make sure this does not happen to you because that is a fire hazard. You want to make sure you move those.
We've got our legs. I already pre-cut with the chop saw. I cut some slits here. I'm going to take the plasma cutter. I'm going to cut out these sides here so I make a nice slit. So I'm going to actually have these crossing each other. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that out. We're using the Everlast Power Plasma 62i today. And we're just going to make some quick cuts. And I'm going to put on my respirator real fast. We get to have some fun. What I'm going to start doing is cut holes in random patterns, kind of like random constellations is what I'm going for, all around this to give it a nice airflow when we build a fire inside. I'm going to be using the plasma cutter, and we're just going to go to town.
Whenever you're plasma cutting, you want to make sure that you have the correct standoff distance. That means the distance between the tip of your consumable and your material. Luckily, this Everlast Power Plasma 62i came with a nice little standoff distance guide. So I would just stick it right down onto the work material, make my little cuts, and good to go. One thing you want to make sure you have when you are plasma cutting.
All we have to do now, we just have to Finish making our legs, attach them to the side of the fire pit, and then attach our handle to the top. Then try it out.
As you can see, I'm making a circular E motion with all of my leg welds here. We're just trying to make sure we're tying into both sides of the material, having a nice secure weld. It's not structural, but we want to still make sure it looks nice and good. For this part, we are running downhill. It's going to lay a little bit flatter than the other welds we have. So you can see right now I'm attaching the handle to the lid. The handle actually came from the original push handle from the leveling drum. I just cut it down close to the actual handles, ground down the base of it so we'd have a pretty decent fit to the top of the lid. We're just using regular stringers right here, just pulling straight across, getting it tied in. So it's not going to pop off if we pull up on that lid. All right, we're getting in the meat potatoes of attaching the legs to the actual drum. Right now what I'm doing are bridge tacks because it's not a flat surface. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to actually bridge the gap between the legs and the actual drum. So what I'm doing is I'm actually building up a little bit of material on the leg base and pulling it down onto the drum. The leg bases are going to be a little bit thicker than the actual drum, so you want to make sure you build it up, pull it on down, tie it in tight. As you see right now, I am tying into each side. We're going into the base material, and then we're going over to our leg. We're tying back and forth, back and forth. When you run downhill, the puddle is going to move quite a bit slower than going uphill just because of the surface tension. So what I'm using to attach these legs is something called a downhill weave. It is not going to be something you want to use in structural welding, but if you're doing something more like art welding, things like this that are not going to be stepped on or used for someone's safety, you can use a downhill weld.
We got a nice fire going now. Everything's all put together. If you have any questions about anything on this project, feel free to reach out in the comments below. Also, make sure to member over at Weld.com. There's lots of forums where you can ask questions and get ideas for projects to do on your own. So until next time, we'll see you out there.